Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create the bauble that I've done here, and it's going to be made in two sections. So we have to do a front and a back matching, and then we have to sew them together. So the yarn that I'm using is Drop Saffron in the red, and it's a cotton. Obviously you can use any yarn that you want. I'm also going to be using the sparkly that I did in my last project from B&M. The saffron I actually picked up from Wool Warehouse. So I go for the lighter sparkly from B&M, and I picked up these balls from Hobbycraft. You see, they're just plain polystyrene balls, and I think you get a pack of 6 or it might be 8 in a pack. I've already used quite a few of them, so I've lost track of how many I've got. So okay, to begin the project you will need a crochet hook. Now I do crochet quite tightly, so you may find that you need to go down to a 3mm hook, but I'm using a 3.5mm for this project. Using your yarn, you need a pair of scissors, and you need a darning needle. Okay, so to begin I'm going to create the magic ring. You all know by now that I prefer the magic ring method, but if you'd like to chain 3 and then work into the centre, that's absolutely fine too. We're going to be creating 2 sides of the bauble. So you could go ahead and create your magic ring or your chain of 3, and then we're going to chain 1. Okay, now the principle of this is that we are going to be creating a flat circle until we get to the point where we don't want to increase anymore, because we want it to wrap around and pull tightly over the bauble. So obviously depending on the size of your bauble you may need to do less rounds than I do, but I'll show you for this standard size that of the ball that Hobbycraft I've purchased from Hobbycraft. So okay, what we're going to do is our first round we're going to create half treble crochets into the magic ring. Okay, so that's a half double in the US. So we're going to yarn over and insert a hook into the loop, into the circle, and yarn over and pull through. So we've got 3 loops on the hook. Then we're going to yarn over and go through all 3 loops on the hook. It's the only trouble with this cotton, it splits. Okay, and we're going to do it again. Yarn over, insert a hook into the circle, yarn over and pull through 3 loops. Yarn over and go through all 3 loops. Now remember, we want to create 8 of these into that space. So go ahead and create your 8 half treble crochets, half doubles in the US. Okay, and then we're going to slip stitch into the first one that we created. And hopefully your yarn isn't splitting as much as mine is. There we go. And then I'm going to pull my centre tighter as I've done a magic ring, and it will just closes it up, which is why I like the magic ring better. Okay, so that's round 1 done. Okay, so round 2 is the second round in our pattern. We've got half trebles to start off with. They're half doubles in the US. Then we've got a round of trebles, and they are doubles in the US. And then we've followed by a round of double crochets, which is single in the US. Let's separate those for easiness. Half trebles, trebles, double crochet. That's in the UK. And in the US it's half doubles, doubles, singles, and we repeat that all the way across of each half. Now what we want to do is create a flat circle until we get to the point where we don't need to increase anymore. The basic principle applies, of a flat circle. So each row needs to increase by the amount of your first stitches. So we started with 8, so the next row needs to increase by 8, and as there's only 8 stitches, we insert a 2 into each stitch across to make the 16. Then the row after, we do every other stitch as an increase. The row after, we do 2 single stitches and increase. The row after, it's 3 individual stitches and an increase, and the row after we do 4, and you get the idea. On my big project, I go up to a point where we do 5 individual stitches and then an increase, and the final round is literally just a single stitch into every stitch around, just to pull it around, and then it fits nicely over my bauble and I can pull it tight. You may find that you need to stop at 3 individual stitches or 4 individual stitches and an increase if you've got a smaller bauble than I have. But I say the basic pattern that I like to create these baubles is a 3 pattern sequence. Half trebles, trebles, doubles, half trebles, trebles, doubles, half trebles, trebles, and that's when it finishes on mine. And that's in the UK, obviously. So to begin the next round, we need to increase in every stitch. So we're going to be doing trebles. We've only chained 1 to close that to start the next round. We're going to do 2 trebles into every stitch across. And obviously if you're in the US, you need to do 2 in each stitch across. 2 doubles in each stitch across. So work your way around, do your 16 stitches in total, and I'll see you back here in a few moments. Okay, so I've just come to the end of doing my trebles, and rather than slip stitch into the first one that we created, we're going to be working in rounds, and this means that we won't have that telltale line that runs up the project, which I think looks better if it's missing from these baubles. No line that shows you where you started and ended your row. But if you're more comfortable, please do slip stitch into your first stitch, chain 1, ignore that chain 1 then when you get to the end, and work your way around the pattern as we're doing. But I say we're going to be working in rounds, and then we can avoid that line that we get. Okay, so half trebles, trebles, row 3 is going to be double crochet. So we insert our hook into that first stitch created, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and go through both. Remember, that's in the US, that's a single. Now we increased every row, every stitch in the last row. In this one, we're going to do an individual stitch, and then the next stitch across we're going to do an increase, and it's double crochets all the way around. So put 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 double crochet into the one after, 2 double crochets into the one after that. Remember, this row is single crochet in the US, double in the UK. So work your way around, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. Work your way around. You should end up on 2 double crochets at the end. Okay, so I've come to the end of that round, and rather than slip stitch, we're going to be continuing on with our rounds. So we're going to be working in half trebles in the next round. That's half doubles in the US. So yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 loops on the hook. And the last round we created an individual and then a double as an increase. This time we're going to do 2 individual stitches followed by an increase. So that was our first treble. In the next stitch across we're going to do another treble, half treble even. Then we're going to do 2 half trebles into the next stitch. Okay, in the next stitch across we're going to do 1 half treble. next stitch across, 1 half treble, and then 2 half trebles into the one after that. Remember, that will be half doubles in the US. Okay, so the pattern will repeat all the way around. 1 half treble, 1 half treble, 2 half trebles. So if you work your way around this row, and I'll meet you back at the end when you finish on your line. Okay, so I've come to the end of that row, and as it's a repeating pattern, we are now back to our treble crochets. So we yarn over and insert a hook into the next stitch, and yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, and yarn over and go through 2. The last row was 2 individual stitches followed by an increase. This row is going to be 3 individual stitches followed by an increase. So that's our first. In the next stitch we're going to do another treble. Remember, in the US that's double. The next stitch across, 1 treble, and the next stitch across we're going to do our increase. So we're going to do 2 trebles into that stitch. Doubles in the US. Next stitch across, 1 treble, next stitch across, 1 treble, next stitch across, 1 treble. That's our 3 individual ones, so we're going to do our increase, which is 2 trebles in the same stitch. Work your way around, and I'll meet you back here when you've done your final. Okay, so I've just come to the end of that row. And the next row we're going to be reverting back to our double crochets, and this last round we were working 3 individual stitches and an increase. The row with the double crochets, which is single in the US, we're going to be doing 4 individual stitches followed by an increase. So to begin, we insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through 2. The next stitch across we're going to do another double crochet. Remember, that's single in the US. Next stitch across, a double crochet, the next stitch across, a double crochet. So that's our 4 individual stitches. So the next stitch across we're going to do our increase, so we're going to do 2 double crochets into that same stitch. Remember, this is a single crochet round in the US, a double crochet round in the UK. So we're going to do 4 individual double crochets. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and then followed by 2 double crochets into the next stitch. 4 individuals, 1 in each stitch. That's 2, 3, 4, followed by an increase, which has got 2 double crochets into, single in the US. So work your way around this row, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I've come to the end of that round, and as I said, some baubles you'll find that are smaller than mine, and so you just need to try it against your bauble and see where you need to stop increasing. Mine still goes up a little bit more, so I'm going to do 1 more round of increases, and the next round we're going to be on half trebles. Okay, so the last round we did 4 individual stitches followed by an increase. This round, as I'm increasing again, I'm going to do 5 individual stitches, and we're on a half treble row. That's half double in the US. So we yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch across, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3. And next stitch across, another half treble, next stitch across, another half treble. That's 3. Next stitch across, another half a treble, next stitch across, another half a treble. So far we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half trebles. So the next one we need to do 2 half trebles into the same stitch. And then we're going to do 5 individual half trebles, 1 in each stitch across. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to do an increase of 2 half trebles in the same stitch. So if you work your way around the pattern, remember that's half trebles in the US, 5 individual, followed by an increase of 2 half trebles into the same stitch, and in the US we're working 5 individual half double crochets, followed by an increase of 2 half double crochets into the same stitch, and I'll meet you back here at the end. Okay, so I've just come to the end of that row, and as I've done quite a few of these, I know that is my last increase row, and all I want to do now is tighten up the bauble so it wraps around. So I'm just going to do one more row, and in this row I'm not going to increase at all. Just pulled a stitch out there. One moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my last 2 I've just pulled out. Okay, so what we're going to do is just follow the pattern that we've had before. The last row was half trebles, so the next row is going to be trebles, and we're just going to create 1 stitch in every stitch around to pull it in. And obviously in the US this row is going to be double crochet, and then what we will do at the end is slip stitch into the first stitch we created. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over and pull through, put up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go through 2, net stitch, another treble. Remember these are double in the US, 1 in every stitch around, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I've just come to the end of that. 1 stitch in every stitch around, and then we're going to slip stitch into the first treble that we created. That was the double in the US. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through, and we're going to snip off the end. Okay, so you need to create 2 of these. That will be the 2 halves of your ball. So if you create your second half, and meet me back here, pause the video here and meet me back here when you've done your second.